We're back, people, and today we're breaking down film on Vic Fangio, Miami Dolphins' new defensive coordinator. I'm a big fan of this pickup. I mean, the whole league is starting to run his scheme. I mean, the best defenses in the league, like the Eagles, the Niners, they run it heavily. And I'm going to go back. We're going to watch some of his 2021 film when he's head coach of the Broncos and watch some of the Eagles film because he was a defense consultant for them. But I really enjoy watching his coverages. It's very fun how simplistic he makes his looks. To disguise stuff pre-snap, but then post-snap he has all these different minor nuances depending on the looks that he's getting that make it very difficult, and they just pass things off beautifully with their communication. The technique they play, leverage, is very important. And at the end, I'll break down maybe a play or two on their fronts, but it's very similar to what the Dolphins ran last season. Just multiple fronts, but their base very similar. I think the only main difference is the technique. They like to play in a gap-and-a-half technique scheme, which is much different from what the Dolphins did when they were more of a two-gap team. But so let's get right into this one. Broncos love to run one coverage to one side of the field and another coverage to the other side of the field. I mean, they mainly run cover 6. Right here, they're in cover 3, really. This safety, the middle of the field safety, is leaning to this side over here, to the field side. And then this is the flat defender. He just relates to number 2, gets out to the flat. The deep third just matches the slant. They're in a zone match coverage here, and since these Giants receivers are tight and they're pretty close together, they're tight to the line of scrimmage, pretty close, instead of this corner playing a deep third, they just pass this off beautifully. They gave this different look, so Daniel Jones might be expecting cover 3, but this corner just quickly gets out to the flat. They just pass it off. They make it easy. He has the leverage to just take this away right away, and it makes it also easier on the safety. He doesn't have to chase this guy to the flat, and he just relates to the number 2, and then everything is just passed off perfectly. They try to get the ball out quickly on time. Like against Fangio defenses, people expect, he's playing a lot of quarters, a lot of cover 6. You get the ball out quickly into the flats. That's where you attack, but he has a lot of different ways to take that away, and it's a very important part of his defense to make things look simplistic. And another thing is the numbers. I'll be showing this all throughout the film, but just he likes to have these lighter boxes, but have the number advantage to each side. So since there's 2 receivers to this side right here, they have 3 guys over here, and then since there's 1, 2, and then technically the running back is a third option, they have 4 guys to this side to match this up. They like to have a number advantage to each side, and it works out really well in his defense with how they pass things off, communicate, and it makes it very difficult. And they bring a lot of 4-man rushes, which if the quarterback holds on to the ball long enough, it leads to a lot of sacks. I think this pre-snap look right here is a very basic look that you'll see in passing situations for the Broncos. It looks like it's going to be quarters, the 2 safeties deep, just their alignment, how everyone's playing it, but they rotate into a cover 6 to the boundary over here. Like this corner's playing in the flat to take this away. They love to cloud their corners. While the corner might look like they're playing in their deep 4 technique, playing man on deep, well, then one of them will then cloud, get down, take away the flat. It allows people to just jump things, and then they just pass things off pretty well here. They like to have either their linebackers or their nickels, whoever is playing to the number 2 this side, to disrupt, reroute number 2, get off those route timings, and then everyone else, he's just man on deep, relating to number 1. He has number 2 to the outside, and then look how like this number 2 right here, he should have been open, but like with the disrupting of the route timing, it forces him, makes him slip, the timing's off, and it becomes incomplete. They just get physical with them. They distribute the routes very nicely, and it's just a pretty simplistic looking defense, like showing the quarters, and then they just matched up. And this is just versus a 2x2, and I'll show how they play quarters versus 3x1 as well, which is very interesting because they have many different looks that they can run versus 3x1. One thing Fangio loves to do is just run these man match or zone match coverages, so making things look like he's running quarters here, like pre-snap, showing the quarters look. And then, a lot of teams will try to run zone beaters versus these types of defenses. And then he just runs either a man match, zone match, where they just relate to, like, this receiver goes out to the flat, and once he sees number 2 go out quickly, he's just going to match up against him. And then 2 is walling off, taking away the inside route from this guy. And then the safety over the top is reading 2-1. Whoever attacks him vertically inside, he takes over here. Same thing to this side. They have a 3-on-2 matchup. He just relates to number 2 to the flat, and then they get a bracket on the number 1 on the outside running the slant. And it's just running these match coverages, and they can pass these things off very nicely. And it just allows you to stay tighter in these coverages, tighter windows. And everything is very calculated with Fangio's defenses, with how they align their leverage, He's playing with the slight outside leverage over here because he knows he has to help to the inside. He's playing slight inside leverage just because his alignment's tighter in the slot. So he goes to the flat. It's a very difficult throw. And then everyone over here with their tight alignment, they're playing with a slight outside leverage. So once number 2 goes out quickly, he's in just a great position to take this away, get this down in the flat. These match coverages are a big part of Fangio's defenses, and it's not something the Dolphins ran a ton of last season. This play right here is actually a very good example of man match down in the red zone. And if you don't know what man match is, it's basically most of the time it will just look like man coverage, like cover 2, cover 1, cover 2 man. Like it just looks straight up like man coverage. But once you see one of the guys fall off, like watch this corner right here, he falls off. Once 86, his man releases to the inside. This is the only way he wasn't going to be man-to-man on 86. Certain players, like if they get a Meg call, which means man everywhere they go, that means you're just man-to-man, straight up. Anywhere he goes, you're man-to-man. He's clearly not a Meg call. He's either man on deep or man on demand is what it's called. So he would have him maybe worked vertically or outside. But since he has inside help, he just passes this off to these inside safeties, and then he just becomes like a robber on the inside. So he can zone off, now read the quarterback's eyes, and then he takes away this throwing lane that was going to be thrown to 26, and it's very difficult. It's a very difficult coverage for quarterbacks to read. Like you'll see a lot of big plays happen in man-match coverages just because this guy releases the inside, quarterback's reading man-to-man, and then out of nowhere, the guy falls off and then takes away a different throwing lane and becomes a robber. It's one of my favorite coverages to watch just because it's very difficult to run, but if your communication is good, that's why the secondary is going to be so important in Fangio's defenses, especially with the safeties. The safeties are going to be huge. I think Holland's going to be great there. They might need to add someone else. I know Jones is coming off injury. Jordan Poyer would be perfect. He runs a lot of this type of coverages in Buffalo. But love watching Fangio's defense. Like this 2021 Broncos team, did a pretty good job defensively under Fangio. And then now the Eagles defense, which I'll go into next, has been really, really good. Fangio, the cover 6 again. What I feel like they're known for most, you'll see them run cover 6 a decent amount. And just the way, they only bring 4 here. They're in their, nickel base look. They're running a 4-2, and they only bring 4. And Von Miller is able to, get around the edge using his moves there. But just over here, they're running quarters to the field side, and everything's very tight here. So just want to see how he plays this cover 6 versus the tight 3x2 empty. This safety looks like he ends up becoming a robber. He'll call this, especially on the backside of 3x1s. Here it's empty, so it's a little bit different. But usually it's like a tricks call. This guy becomes a robber. He robs the middle of the field. This corner is still matching outside. Just a quick flat route. This linebacker is going to relate to that. This number 2. And then over here, this guy's the flat corner, but he isn't getting threatened by number 3 quickly to the flat, so he kind of just relates to this number 1. Doesn't want this to be thrown pretty easy pitch and catch because this nickel takes away number 2, relates to this. This corner is in a tougher position because he kind of has to leverage both of these route concepts because this is a deep half safety over here, so he's not going to, sink quarters. He's not playing a flat foot read to sink on this. Usually, he likes to be very aggressive with his safeties and quarters if they're playing the quarter side, where they can just squeeze these routes. But by the time, these things are coming open, the 4-man pass rush gets there. They just pass things off beautifully, and it just gives that quarterback a slight hesitation, just that half a second. How many times this year did the Dolphins defense was just half a second, milliseconds away from getting these sacks, and they were running a lot of man. And I feel like now in this new defense, you're going to see Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips getting more opportunities to just purely pass rush because they're not going to be blitzing. He doesn't blitz a ton. He'll bring some 5-man rushes in zone. He'll run some fire zone, some dog blitzes, but it's more rare. And so those work more successfully because it's not just happening all the time and the offenses aren't expecting it. But now these 4-man pass rushes, our edges are going to get more pure pass rush opportunities, feel out the offensive linemen more, and then I feel like the defenses, the coverages, how it works with the levers, their alignment pre-snaps, everything like that, confusing quarterbacks, makes them hesitate for just a little bit longer than usual, and then the sacks will come, which is where you get those big-time plays. Running quarters over here on the 3 receiver side. On the backside, this is just basically locked up. Usually when they're running quarters, cover 6, whoever the corner is on the backside of a 3x1, he's just pretty much locked up one-on-one on this receiver. And then he has the backside safety. Play this in a few different ways. I would say he's playing more of a deep half coverage here, so this was probably cover 6. But if it was quarters, Usually if it was tricks, he would be robbing the middle of the field, trying to either poach number 3 to, take away. Usually it's tough for this quarterback on the 3 receiver side to read that safety. And then sometimes he'll play what they'll call book coverage, where he'll stay over the top of number 1. And if he's not threatened there, then he can look back over the number 3. But here he's just in the deep half. And you can see how they have this box coverage just to take away the 3 receiver side, 4 guys versus 1, or 4 guys versus 3. And he has, the first guy deep, number 3 to the inside. He just relates there. And then everything just sort of comes into it perfectly. The number 1 is running an out route. He has the perfect leverage to take that away. They run the quick guy, the flat defender right here has the out route taken away. He's in his leverage position. And just how he has people align, how they play their leverage, it makes it so easy on the defense right here. And then this running back was on this side, so he was kind of, a number 2 over to this side. And the linebacker's just relating to him. And it's basically really the only thing that's open is just getting the ball out here. But they'll come down, tackle this with 2 guys, kind of bracketing that at this point. But just love how he plays his leverage pre-snap, how he has things locked up. Corner, safety play is going to be very important in this defense. So I think adding a guy in free agency, probably add 1 in free agency, like a safety in free agency, and then 1 in the draft. Now we're going to get into the Eagles versus the Giants. They put on a masterclass in this game. This is the playoff game. They ran a lot of quarters. They also ran a lot of cover 1, which I'm not going to show a ton of because the Dolphins defense ran a lot of cover 1 last season. So it's not something I need to focus on, I feel like, too much in this video. But he's still going to throw those coverages in there, cover 1, cover 3, those post-field safety. Like right here, he's showing like a cover 3 look pre-snap with this safety lineup in the middle of the field. But they rotate into quarters. Daniel Jones then, stumbles. He's running play action, so he's going to see this all late post-snap. And I love how they distribute these routes, because they run like this, Yankee type of concept, the deep over, the post behind it. And I like how they play this, because instead of this safety reading over here and trying to just carry deep, they sort of just pass this off, knowing what's coming. And with this guy, just based on pre-snap alignment, they saw this, because when they're aligned like this, kind of tight, they see a play action, they're going to take their opportunity, running a deep over, the post behind it. This safety takes away here. This safety is able to just take away this, and they just run their routes into the leverage of it. And it forces, Daniel Jones to scramble, get away. Everything else gets passed off pretty good. I mean, Saquon's coming open here, late out of the flat, but that's just sort of a breakdown in coverage. I mean, late, seeing things, everything's still covered up, but just beautifully ran. Love how they use their quarters, their safeties, instead of, making them try to run and chase. They just have them play their leverage, pass things off beautifully. Love the communication. Here's a good example of how the Eagles disguise their coverage. They're running cover 2 right here. This is a very quarters look for them, but then it becomes a cover 2. They're both just clouding 24. The corner over here, I believe, is Slay. I also love how they show some pressure here, a different look up front, giving many different looks pressure-wise, and they actually end up bringing 5 here, a different, zone blitz. And then he forces the ball to go out quickly, and when you have these corners clouding, looking like they might be playing leverage, but just get out, take away these flat routes, and it gets a hit for only a few yards. And we can watch the blitz here as well. 5-man pressure. These guys end up coming. This guy drops out. This guy drops out. And then they bring 5 guys, pretty much all attacking from this side, so they can't have a numbers advantage. So the ball has to come out quickly. And it's just, that's what it turns into. So love the way he can set up those blitzes, the coverage played behind it, running the cover 2 out of the zone blitz, knowing that your corners can quickly play the flat, because that's where the quarterback is most likely to go with the ball. Another really good pre-snap disguise here. Like, this ends up becoming a cover 3 look, which it doesn't look like it's going to be any type of coverage pre-snap. It looks like it's probably going to be quarters, and this guy would maybe drop down to the flat. But this guy rotates middle of the field. They drop down to buzz the middle here. Everything sort of gets passed off well. He has the vertical route. 57 has the flat taken away. He robs, takes away 18. This is actually coming open in the seam. This safety gets down too far. Tries to take this away, even though this corner should probably be taking this. And then even though Jones is starting to see this come open, middle field safety is going to probably get there. And then they pressure finally gets there. So even though these concepts can come open later against these zone defenses, the 4-man rush has the opportunity to get there, disrupt some things. He runs some twists and some stunts, which the Dolphins actually are pretty good at. He sets this up for Reddick, gets the sack, and he's sort of crashing down to take on this 2-on-1. But they end up passing it off pretty well, but now you get the guard overplaying the inside. Reddick able to come off of it, force him to escape the pocket, and just throw it away. So even though one of the routes did come open at one point, and he was able to see it, it was the 4-man rush was able to get there, force this throwaway on. It was a 3rd and 11 situation too. So even though things will come open eventually, it's that timing that is just thrown off by these pre-snap disguises, and it's worked very effectively for Fangio over the years. Quarters, first 3-by-1. They have 4 guys, first 3 on this side. Love how they play this. They pass everything off. Slay on the backside of 3-by-1, just matching here. He's basically locked up man-to-man, relates this, plays this perfectly. And then here, you can see this safety is basically just poaching to this side, trying to find the number 3. But since the number 3 is more just blocking and releasing late, he doesn't end up taking it. 24, 32, good communication. He breaks the dig, and you can see 32 probably hears the communication call that he's breaking to his route, and they just pass this off. The leverage is all there. The flag gets taken away. And then even like the linebackers, this linebacker is probably responsible for Saquon because he was the number 2 this side. They end up both kind of releasing here, and he takes away both of them because he's just relating to the number 3 that comes to his side. And then they try to throw the deep dig to Darius Slayton. But the safeties, when they're running quarters, these safeties don't gain a ton of depth. Like usually the corners like to stay over the top, be the deep zone players, but the safeties like to sit on things, be aggressive, because that's where they're going to try to attack if you're playing deep, and then they just break on it and make a play. So very impressive stuff there from this Eagles defense. Here's another example of them bringing 4 on 3rd down and getting a sack just because everything's sort of passed off pretty beautifully versus the 2-by-2 set. They're stacked over here, very tight. This corner actually is following, which is very interesting how they do this, because I think he's more following Slay in the number 1, but this linebacker relates to it because he becomes the number 2. Now this corner matches up versus the tight end. Take this away. The receiver number 2 over here works the cross. This safety ends up passing it off. They bracket the number 1 over here. Everything just taken away. Nothing open at all underneath. Linebacker play can be pretty important. Once he sees him working more vertically, this linebacker now gets his eyes across to help take away the drag route, which he is more responsible for as a hook defender, and then forces Daniel Jones to escape, and they end up getting a strip sack. So just love how this defense functions. Everything is passed off beautifully. How they show stuff pre-snap, everything's very simplistic, but they just have the leverage, the number advantage. 3-by-2 over here, and you have your 4 versus 3 routes over here, and even guys who are on the opposite side of the field side formation, they still are able to see this. This safety plays this very well to take that away, and nothing's open at all. The cover 3, and just look how beautiful this looks. Like, this is poetry in motion, how everything is passed off. Just watch all these players. It's a 3-by-1 here, and they rotate into a cover 3. He's the robber. Deep 3rd over here, obviously. This guy in the flat, he gets out into the flat. This linebacker passes this route off the mesh concept and takes the number 1 from over here. Slay, who's a deep 3rd, doesn't just cover grass. He finds a guy who's dragging underneath and takes this away. The robber takes this sort of sit route over the middle of the field from the number 3 away. Everything just beautifully passed off. Nothing there. Jones trying to throw the curl, but that's even doubled up, and then they get sacked again. I'm going to use this run play as an example. Probably the last play that I'm going to break down just to show off how their fronts work. It's very similar, as you see on this play, what the Dolphins like to do. Very similar, like they like to have the nose. This guy's more in a 3-tech. I would say their base is usually nose, and then this guy would be lined up in a 4-eye, shading to the inside. This guy's straight up defensive lineman is just a 4 right here, but usually he would be in a 4-eye. They're just bumped down a little bit, I think, playing to the tight end. The outside, they have guys outside linebacker standing up. They're in usually a 5-2 look up front, odd spaced fronts here. He'll run some multiple fronts as well. And then how they like to play things, they like to play in a gap and a half, which usually means you're responsible. You have your primary gap, and then maybe once the running back clears that, you have to squeeze to your secondary gap. Right here, they get a couple different calls. There's either a tight call or a tough call. And there's only one like real difference between the two is that the nose tackle is what you read. If he's to the flow side, if he's playing this backside A gap, which he does here, he's playing the backside A gap, and the linebacker is going to scrape over the top and play the play side A gap. That means it's a tough call. But if it was the opposite, that this nose tackle played the front side A gap to the flow side, and then the linebacker played the backside A gap, then it would have been a tight call. But right here, he just gets cut off, so I think he's playing the backside A gap. I don't even know. That might not have been the call. I think he just got cut off pretty quickly. But then the linebacker recognizes this, just gets over the top, scrapes this. 93 really makes the play just by getting to the backfield quickly. Like, even though you're playing a gap and a half, it's not two gap. Usually with two gap, you're playing less aggressive, but it still allows you to play aggressiveness to get upfield, and he just takes the opportunity here. And then, linebackers set the edge, become the force defender. Safeties got to be able to make plays in this defense versus run. They're usually secondary fits in this run defense. Corners will be the secondary force defender. Sometimes they'll be even force defender from split field look. Many different things you got to understand. But this is a pretty basic look at what the run defense would look like the front, similar to what the Dolphins did. Just imagine Christian Wilkins being 93, kind of what he did all season long in a very similar spot, attacking like that, and forcing these runs for losses. But yeah, just like these types of looks where you're going to have less help in the box. Like, we can look at it from pre-snap how they're getting help here. But the safeties are both aligned deep. It's a split field look. The numbers are pretty even, so you got to win with your technique. The defensive linemen are going to be super important up front. So yeah, that's the Vic Fangio film breakdown. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.